Well, hello, church history friends. My name is Barb Walden, and I am thrilled to welcome you this evening to our second program in the brand new series, Hands on History. So, in this 3 week series, we are gathering with four individuals who are actively involved in preserving community of Christ. And for you visual learners out there, here's a little bit of our schedule. Last week, we had the joy of exploring the importance of folklore and oral history with Megan Edvilson. If you missed it, the video recording is about to go live on our website and YouTube channel. So be sure to circle back around to catch everything that Megan shared with us last week. It was incredibly informative. While this week, we are diving into the Community of Christ archives with church librarian and archivist Rachel Killebrew. While next week, we get to look forward to gathering with Karen Norton, who will share Preserving the Past inside the British Isles Mission Center archives. And a bonus feature of next Thursday is that we have a chance to hear from Andrew Hughes, who's actively digitizing his congregational history in El Cajon, California. He's taking old VHS tapes and audio recordings, he's digitizing them and then uploading them to his congregation's YouTube channel for all to see. It really is a step back in time. So, our hope is that throughout this new series, we will all learn a thing or two about how we can preserve community of Christ history in our own neck of the woods, even if that means preserving your own history and your own stories. But of course, we would not be able to host this new series or our upcoming fall lecture series or the Alma Blair internship program or the annual Historic Sites bus tour or any of our educational programs without your generous donations. So thank you for those donations and your monthly gifts to the Community of Christ Historic Sites Foundation. And in case there is anyone out there tonight who would like to give, you can see on the screen that there are 3 easy ways to support the Historic Sites Foundation through online giving and gifts through the mail. Wendy will drop the online link in the chat for those who are wishing to make a donation tonight. We know there's a lot of outstanding organizations, especially educational organizations, out there for you to support. And we thank you for supporting them and for supporting the Historic Sites Foundation. Thank you so much for your generosity. Now, two people who need no introduction are Peter Smith and Wendy Eaton. Peter serves as a board member for the Historic Sites Foundation and as co-host of our annual bus tour, which is just about to hit the road in early October. Welcome, Peter. It's good to see you. And Wendy serves as the administrative assistant for us at the Historic Sites Foundation, and she's co-host of the popular church history series, Cup of Joe. That's featured on the former Project Zion podcast, now rebranded as Faith Unfiltered. Same great podcast under a new name. So welcome, Wendy. And I got the new name right, didn't I? Faith Unfiltered? Okay. Thank you. Now, our guest speaker this evening, who I've talked about, is Rachel Killebrew. Rachel is the World Church Librarian Archivist and Records Manager for Community of Christ International Headquarters. Rachel's a member of the Church History and Sacred Story team, as well as a past president of the John Whitmer Historical Association. She has a bachelor's degree in history and education. She has a master's degree in library and information science, as well as certifications in records management. Rachel's presentation tonight is called Preserving Your History, Tips and Tricks for Both Tangible and Intellectual Retention of Congregational Records. That is a mouthful, but we are going to get a brain full of knowledge tonight after listening to Rachel Killebrew. And before she gets in, I should say, you all might have noticed that the entire team tonight on your screen are wearing matching shirts. Better yet, they are the new shirts that debuted at World Conference earlier this year. The shirts share the message, your story is church history, and they were inspired by the original church seal created over 150 years ago when church headquarters was in Plano, Illinois. Now, if you'd like to get your hands on one of these shirts for your own wearing and fashionable attire, your own way to preserve or promote preserving church history, we just ordered a new batch of shirts. So we surely have your size. The sizes come from small all the way to 3XL. And we also have some long sleeve ones. Which I should have brought out, but they are gray shirts with dark blue sleeves, and they have the same message and the same seal in a navy blue color. If you would like one of these shirts, Wendy's going to drop information in the chat. All you need to do is get a hold of us, and we're happy to send you a shirt, or we can save you a shirt if you're going to the John Whitmer Historical Association Conference in Independence, Missouri, here in a couple of weeks. We'd be happy to hand you a shirt in person, or if you live far away from Missouri and aren't going to be able to make it, we're happy to mail you a shirt. The shipping with the U.S. Post Service, I believe, is $9.25, so a little less than $10. What makes these shirts so meaningful for me is that they were inspired by that original church seal. And lucky for us, we have the church archivist here to tell us a little bit about why that church seal is so significant, what it says to us about where Community of Christ was 150 years ago. So Rachel, I'm going to turn the spotlight over to you to take it away.
So I love this church seal shirt. And I think Mark Shearer really made some great connections in Journey of a People too. So he talks about on the 6th of November, 1873, Claude Roger and Charles Wesley Wandell set out on the ship the Domingo to go to Australia, and they spring a leak. So they stop in Tahiti and to get the ship repaired. And while they're there, they discover some church members in Tiona. And they're early church members. We didn't realize we still had people out there. And they're sitting down and singing Spirit of God like a fire is burning. It's the church anthem. And so they were so excited. They preached and taught for 2 days. They baptized 51 church members in the lagoon. They continue on to Australia, and they report back to headquarters. And in the 1st of March, 1874 Herald, they talk about this great event that happened. A month later, Joseph III is filling in the conference on everything that happened with the Australia mission. The next day, the church seal committee comes together and says, here's a seal, and it's got palm trees on it, which I think is just fantastic because it's such an early point in our church history. When we're picking the logo for the church, we incorporate our friends from around the world with this beautiful palm tree edition. And on a side note, what I'd like to say is really cool with these shirts specifically is that at conference, when you guys were selling them, we had people in from other factions of the restoration. Some of our LDS friends always come to conference to, stay up to date on things that work in bridge builders communities. We had some others that passed through, and they were so excited. They were buying the t-shirts and taking them back and sharing them with their community as well, because it's a seal that a lot of us love. And they were certainly happy to support the Historic Sites Foundation, which you get a great t-shirt, you support the foundation, and I'm personally thankful for the foundation because of the support that you guys have given in terms of helping us take care of our artifacts and sending us fantastic interns that have just really been invaluable. In the last couple of years, we've had Mike Nielsen, Liz Swick, Benjamin, we've had Tiona, and they have all been lifesavers, and they're all very brilliant, talented human beings that have contributed in their own ways. And so I'm very, very grateful for that and for the t-shirt sales that help fund that, along with many other things that this wonderful group has helped support.
Thank you, Rachel.
So now that you're all a captive audience, thank you for attending tonight. Preserving your history, tips and tricks for both tangible and intellectual retention of congregational records. Congregational records you'll also hear referred to as jurisdictional histories. Jurisdiction just refers to the area. It's a more formal term, but you should be aware of this because we have great friends in like the LDS Church History Library that have scanned the microfilm of these records for us, and they share them on their website, which I'll provide later in the presentation. And you can go there and look at these early records. Now, the earliest records were brought in by Samuel A. Burgess, who was an early historian and librarian for the church. He requested in 1920 that congregations send in their records. So a lot of our records go up to 1920, 1922, and they look like the one on the screen, which is this is actually a screenshot from the microfilm of the Kansas City branch of the church. Um, and so it's very, very invaluable in terms of membership and then in terms of just business meetings and things like that. But jurisdictional records. So the question is, why do we need historians? Barbara Bernauer, who was the archivist assistant for a long time, referred to our congregational historians as the guardians of the church's memory. So if you want to feel like an Avenger, please join the History Avengers. This is great to preserve our history. Our historians preserve records in the most up-to-date and accurate formats, so future generations of authors, family, and church members know our history. They also provide a snapshot of each year in a timely manner. So you don't have that degradation of information like when you're trying to remember things 10 years out. It's always nice and fresh and accurately recorded. And if a year is missed, you can catch up on it pretty easily. So, why do we need congregational histories? We're a community. Our individual congregational stories weave together to create the big picture that is community of Christ. Um, we use them in celebration of milestone events. A lot of times, our leadership, if they're going out to celebrate 150th anniversary with someone or with a congregation, they will ask for these records so that they can help tell your story too and share it and celebrate it with you. Family genealogists and historians use them to track family relation, location, and involvement of church members. I've had people that aren't even church members locate relatives that they've been looking for 27 years because they're in our records. Um, that was actually not too long ago, and it was 27 years. So it was just a joy for this woman to find her family. They also tell the story of communities. We had this great couple of people that came in searching for their family story. And what they learned is that their congregation started in Arkansas as part of a logging community. And when the whole area had been cleaned out, they would pick up the actual building and all of the members and they would move to another area. And so they tracked their congregation across Arkansas into Missouri and eventually to Oklahoma. They changed the name of the congregation every time they moved, but it was everything down to the same building. So it's kind of neat to follow industry across the United States with this great group of people that was always the same group of people. It was always the congregation that moved together, and to see how they molded the world that we live in. Um, Congregational histories are also accessed by our Community of Christ Historic Sites friends and congregations and leadership for telling storytelling celebrations. Church historians have used them in the writing of church history books. I mentioned Mark's books earlier, and he certainly dug into them quite a bit. So they are a blessing in a whole variety of ways, and just a font of knowledge. Um, People use them for journals and John Whitmer Historical Association, MHA, things like that, as well as for the people that are diving into our global history. We've got great historians working on that recently as well. So they're really a blessing in a lot of ways. So how do you appoint a historian? You find a willing volunteer, and it's always good to have a willing volunteer because if you volunteered somebody, they're not necessarily going to want to do it. But surely there's somebody that's excited to jump on board, or a few people that can, share the role. Now, one person's going to have the title, but we certainly recommend working together. We are a community. You just send an email with the name of the historian and their address to me at rkillebrew@seaofchrist.org, or you are welcome to give me a call. My number is 816-521-3050, and I can provide that later as well if anybody has any questions. At that point, I send an official letter of appointment and the basic guidelines for historian reports to the historian, as well as make a note of the historian in our records. Um, After that, your congregation just has to vote to sustain the appointment. Now, report necessities. You want the name of the congregation, the year, major events, congregation celebrations, congregation community outreach. What cool things did you do? Did you do Jesus and Me? Did you create prayer shawls that you sent out to help people? Blessing bags? Did you have a community carnival? How did you shape the world around you and your congregation? Um, Business meetings and conference notes are good to include, statistics, numbers of baptisms, transfers, deaths, withdrawals, all of that, as well as leadership within the congregation is another good thing to include. People will ask for that. I pretty often get requests for who was our pastor in this year, or can you give us a string of pastors? And these are the first place I'm going to go to that, especially for the older reports that aren't in Shelby, which I know several of you are probably quite a few of you are probably very familiar with Shelby, which is our current membership tracking. Um, but for these older reports, the historian reports kind of are the go-to for those. Nice enhancements for our report. Anything you can think of that might help the story. Videos are becoming more common. People will send in DVDs, USB drives, Google Drive, Dropbox, and they have just records of special events. News clippings, please make sure you include the date and the paper title and photos. But please, please, please always label your photos with individuals, events, and the location. Um, it's often that we will get a stack of photos and we have no clue who's in it or what's going on. It's a bunch of church people in a field, and that's a wonderful thing to see. But we want to be able to tie it to your congregation and what you were doing and all of that. So it's so important. And I say this as somebody who recently went through photos that my mom had at her house after she passed, and I I don't know who the people are. I don't know why they're special to us. So I don't want to see you guys experience that same thing. When we get them here at headquarters, I want to be able to tie them to your congregation and know there's something special. And they are, but we just want to be able to tie them to you. So when do I turn in the report? Ideally, January, but honestly, they come in all year long. I'm just truly grateful to receive it when you have time to complete it. And even if you have to skip a year and come back and send in 2 or 3 reports in one year, that's absolutely fine. It's pretty common, but we do recommend yearly just so that you can stay on top of it and have the most accurate information. So, what if your congregation hasn't filed a report in a while? Um, Cumulative reports are welcome and not uncommon. I saw quite a few during the pandemic, and a couple of them even turned into books. So, Janet Irby did a great book on the Crystal Springs congregation, and she went out and got interviews with members and former members, and she just did a phenomenal job. Thomas Reynolds did the same thing for the Grand Rapids congregation, and he self-published this great book that I think you can buy it on Amazon, but it's just phenomenal. So cumulative reports are not uncommon, and even if you just send them in as a PDF or a stack of printed paper, that's fine too. We're just grateful to have them, and super grateful for your time in putting them together. While you are making these reports, feel free to ask me for past information that may help guide your cumulative report writing, such as Herald references or archive references. If you need old historian reports to know where you need to fill in, I'm happy to provide those as well. Um, just feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to work with you and to help save this history. So here's actually a picture of Thomas Reynolds' book, Faith, Commitment, and Sacrifice, The Saints in Grand Rapids. Now, you use guidelines, and each historian has issued a series of guidelines that we'd like for you to follow. But don't be scared, add your own flair to it. This is a reflection of you and your congregation. So if your congregation does something special and that's a way for you to express yourself, feel free to do it. I mean, I'm thinking with my education degree, we had the Gardner's Multiple Intelligences. And so it makes me think we have this wonderful congregation nearby that does a lot through theater. And I could see them doing some sort of a theater report or, of course, is taped and sent in. But if you feel like photos are the best way to do that, you can create some sort of a, PDF scrapbook or something we could scan. absolutely fine. If you just want basic details, that's fine too. And we just ask that you hit certain highlights so that we can really save that story. So, tips and tricks for a good report or make notes of events as they happen. Work with your congregation to gather information. So, if you have a shutterbug in your congregation, have them take a bunch of photos and use those and submit them. If you can't attend one day, then see if a friend can sub in for a special event or something and let you know what happened. I mean, we work together again, we're a community, so it's we can we can rely on each other. And then again, have fun with it. There's a lot you can do with it and it reflects your own uniqueness. I often see this as a storytelling opportunity too within your congregation, and you can be the living history. So, let's say once a quarter, once a year, have a history day. Share your stories with one another, and it doesn't just have to be Heritage Day. Write down your stories, take videos, use these moments to connect. Um, you can have your older members connect with your younger members, just everyone in general. Just share the stories. Think of how much is lost because we don't know what prompts to use. So use those photos. Who is in them? Megan Edvilson has great oral history prompts that you can draw from, or you can even do a list of questions. Or I think of the popsicle stick game where you write things on a popsicle stick and then you just randomly draw them. And what's your favorite church memory? Or it'll say, what's your greatest contribution to the church? And you can share that with one another and record it, whether that's um, through audio or video or just taking notes. I mean, just enjoy it and have fun and connect. So, how do I submit my report? You can submit your reports via mail. You can drop them off at the temple, at the front desk. We have a library Dropbox. You can email them to me. Uh, you're welcome to use Google Drive or Dropbox if that helps you too. Um, Whatever way you can get them to me, email is great. We get them in a variety of formats: paper, PDF, Word documents, CDs, USB sticks, even in books, as you saw with Thomas Reynolds' book. So do what works best for you. I'm just super grateful to receive them. So, historical record retention. We encourage you to send your historical records to the temple archives. This helps us preserve our story. Now, the one exception is that if you're international, when in doubt, check with your local mission center. Some areas, such as the British Isles, have their own repository, which you'll see next week that Karen's going to talk, from the British Isles archives. So that'll be an incredible experience too. But check if you're international with your locals just to make sure that it's not supposed to be kept locally. Um, if you're not ready to submit your original records or you want to wait for a convenient time to transport them, please store them and care for them until you're ready to do so. I also highly encourage digitization, which we will talk about in a little bit, um, just to kind of preserve them as they are in the moment. So when you send items to headquarters, how are they processed? Um, my team checks to ensure that items are in safe condition for attention. There's no mold or mildew. We sort for relevance. We eliminate duplicates and unnecessary items like envelopes, which a lot of times the glue on the back can cause troubles within a folder. We file things together in folders in an order that makes sense. We ensure everything is transferred to appropriate storage conditions and that the items are appropriately labeled. And then we catalog the materials so we know where to find them. So that way, when you call and you say, hey, do you have the history of the Stone Church congregation? I can go and pull the files directly for you. Now, how do you access these once you've donated them to the church? You can call me. Again, my number is 816-521-3050, or you can email me. I'm happy to set up an appointment for you to review your items in person. I'm in the office 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Typically, now, granted, there are times that I'm off for vacation or, like when Joe Wentworth comes to town, I'll be off a day for that to attend the conference. But I'm happy to work with you to see him in person. I'm also happy to provide emails remotely via email. I've even made copies and snail mailed them out to people. Whatever you need to access those materials, I can do my best to help you. So, preservation tips: always wash your hands well before handling older records. Um, Keep food and drink away from archival materials. You don't want to spill. I'm going to be honest with you. Even today, wearing this shirt, I was like, I can't wear it until later because I'm going to spill it on me. And I know archival materials are less washable. So keep your food and drink away from them, and then keep items away from the light when they're not in use. They can fade. If you forget a book on a shelf or a photo in a window, it'll fade. So store them away from the light if you're not looking at them, and then store items at a comfortable temperature for human beings, below 75 degrees with a humidity above 15% and below 65%. If the humidity is too low, the materials will become too brittle, and if it's too high, they're going to mold. Acid-free storage is the best. Check sites like Amazon, Gaylord, Capco, and local hobby stores for acid-free storage materials. I know in a pinch, I've run up to the local hobby store and found a coupon and was able to get the clear folders I needed for a display. So you can find a lot locally and online. Please don't use tape to preserve your records. The tape isn't good for them. It leaves a residue, it damages the items, and if you find out that they are mounted to an acidic surface, it'll actually create more damage, and then you've got tape peeling off the front of your photos or whatever. Don't try to remove tape that is already on records. Um, Please remove old paper clips. They often rust and damage papers. Obviously, this is a tetanus issue, but it's also a messy issue for your preservation as well. And then roll large papers and blueprints, but don't use a tight rubber band to secure them. Consider a flat ribbon instead. For truly special individual pages, consider plastic sleeves or archival envelopes. They can be purchased at your hobby store or extremely affordable online. Just make sure they're acid free, and if you type that, it'll pop up. Um, Now back to rubber bands. They become brittle and they damage paper. They'll actually leave a residue and they break down so quickly. I've had some that just fall apart after 10, 15 years, and it puts a big mark across the records that they're attached to. And then you've got this brittle junk all throughout your file. So you don't want that either. Please keep records in a place where they won't get wet, like on a shelf in appropriate storage containers. And don't store records loosely in a box. Keep them in folders tightly so they stay flat. If you have to add spacers to a box to ensure this happens, that's okay. I've actually put an archival box inside of a um, bigger archival box before just to make sure that items are held tightly. It keeps things flat and neat and not damaged. So on this next slide, you can actually see here's it's a document from 1980. I've seen paper clips rust much newer than that. Um, Here's a staple, kind of the same thing. The older ones rust. You'll see pins through documents sometimes. There's a phase where people would actually put like I don't know, like a dressmaker's pin through. And then, of course, here's a box that I pulled off a shelf earlier that had just aged to archival review that wasn't full, and you can see there's paper folded in it and things falling over, and it's just not a good storage condition. So negatives and slides are a different adventure. They like it cold, store them someplace chilly. Cellulose nitrate film from the early 1900s is especially dangerous, and it can spontaneously combust at over 106 degrees. We actually have a special refrigerator in the archives for things like that. Remove slides from outdated plastic sleeve holders. You're going to know those are outdated because they're going to feel brittle, they're going to be yellowed. They're often not acid free and can damage the slides. And keep all of this material tightly packed, again in acid free boxes to prevent curvature. You want to keep the slides dust free. You want to store them in a cool, dark, and dry environment like we just talked about. And again, modern polyethylene sleeves. You should also consider using a slide scanner to get digital images of your slides. These can be rather affordably purchased, $100 range. And another opportunity that your local library may have, like our local library has a really cool preservation program where you can go in and use all sorts of scanners and slides and all sorts of things to actually transfer your records to digital format, and it's a free service. So for our library, it's the Midwest Genealogical Library, and we're really blessed to have a fantastic library in the local area that's one of the best in the nation for genealogy. That's probably why they provide this service, but I know others do as well too. So it's a free option to look into. With ours, you just have to make a reservation and you can go over and they'll actually help you use that whatever machine you reserve. So it's a cool thing. Um, Photos, you always want to label photos with the names of individuals, events, and groups. And then you can do that on the sheet protectors directly or on a photo with a photo pencil. Um, Number two pencil also works on the back of a photo typically. You want to use acid-free corners, acid-free paper envelopes, and archivable plastic, or mylar high-density polyethylene or polyester sheets with dividers for photos. You don't want to overpack your albums because this will cause things to bend and again get damaged. And please do not use glue, rubber cement, or tape to mount photos. These methods will discolor and damage the photos. And I'm going to call my friend Roger out here. He actually submitted this wonderful caravan album the other day, and we had a discussion about it. Oh, let me go back. But as you can see, the paper is starting to age around it, and it's going to damage the photo soon. And it's just one of those old sticky type photo albums that we used where you peel up the plastic and stick your stuff to it. But he's excited to get that in a better format now, and share it. So it's a great album, and I know the church history group's going to put out an article soon on caravans. So it's something to look forward to. Our community building opportunities stem from historical recollections. So when you're talking photos, have a photo party. Gather your congregation, go through the photos together for proper labeling, and relive the memories. You know, who is this? Is this grandma? Is this, so-and-so's friend? Is this the pastor at the time? Enjoy sharing the moment with everyone at your congregation. Another fun thing to do is to have a notebook of photos for people to flip through, kind of like a do you know who I am? Like a guess who kind of a thing. I've done that with photos at conference before and put them out. And people just have a blast with it. They really enjoy, at the very least, looking at the older photos, but they enjoy seeing the congregation through the eyes of the people they love at that time. Um, you can also share your photos on social media pages and ask for help. It's just another format of that notebook where you can work together to solve history's mysteries. It's a fun time. So electronic audio and visual media. You want to use clean hands with nitrile gloves to handle film and minimize dust. And it's best to transfer this material to electronic formats as soon as possible. For large volume, feel free to reach out to my team or a tech-savvy friend. We can help you figure out how to do that. Equipment can be quite affordable. We'll talk about equipment in a bit as well. You may already have it around, or maybe your library, again, as mentioned earlier, might have a service like ours does where you can really share and do things just a little bit at a time, because transferring this can be quite cumbersome. For just a few items, you might seek a professional. We have a great person at Summit Video, which is about 20 minutes from here. He's a fantastic church member. We go to him for some special things that we know will be difficult to transfer. So he was kind enough to transfer some wonderful things for us earlier this week. So I'm very grateful for Chad's help in that. But you're welcome to reach out for his information or for somebody nearby as well. And then reels and cassettes break down over time, and you want to transfer them as soon as possible. And if not, keep them away from the light in a cool place. And I can say, having transferred cassettes here, a lot of them really do break down. Peter, Judd, and Mark were smart enough to transfer some of our conferences that had not been transcribed from the late 50s and early 60s, actually late 50s all the way through the 60s, about 2010. And so when the pandemic hit, that was actually my first big task when we thought we were going to be home for a couple weeks. I transcribed all of those, but there were chunks that I just had to put inaudible in because the tape had degraded too far to actually get that little bit. So you want to get them transferred as soon as possible. VHS are starting to break down the same way. You want to keep everything away from magnets and speakers. And then nitrate-based film from the 50s and earlier, again, is often flammable. Another thing to watch out for is vinegarization. If you smell vinegar coming from a reel, separate it from the others immediately, or from any type of film. Um, this is common on microfilm reels and safety motion picture film, as well as some magnetic reels. Initially, we thought that reels would last 450, 500 years before degradation would occur, but time has proven that vinegar syndrome can take an effect in as little as 70 years, even in perfect conditions. So if you have your items stored in less than perfect conditions, which, let's be honest, sometimes an air conditioner goes out or something, it can take effect faster. This is called vinegar syndrome. It's where cellulose triacetate film decays caused by the hydrolysis of acetate groups into acetic acid. It'll spread between the reels and destroy them. It causes them to shrink and get brittle, and then you just can't run them through a machine anymore. Digitization. So here we use a variety of scanners. We use a seizure book scanner. It's a company, they cost, ours is one of the pro editions. It cost about $500, but the volunteers love it. I love it. It's so handy. It has auto scanning features, so I can set it to auto scan. I can set it for a book or a document, one page or a full spread. And as long as it sees movement, it won't take a picture, but as soon as the movement stops, it takes a picture. So you can do big documents rather quickly. Um, it will export to PDFs, searchable PDFs. It runs OCR on things if you want. So you can search that final document, especially if you're doing something big. That's nice. It's just a fantastic scanner, and it can do so much. It has the book flattening technology, so it'll clean up the pages and whatnot for you. It's a really good scanner, and they come in a variety of options. For slides, we use both a Kodak slide scanner and a Honecker Schlemmer slide scanner. Um, for photos and negatives, we have a Kodak scanner that was graciously purchased for us by the Sites Foundation in 2010. It's cranking along. It's on its last wheels, but it's doing a fantastic job. We also use an Epson V600 Perfection scanner. The difference, or the reason we have the Epson, is that sometimes you need a backlit scanner for negatives and things like that. And so it does that. It can also do extremely high quality scans. So we've had some instances where we've needed something scanned at 4,500 DPI, and the Epson has been able to handle that. The Kodak scanner scans up to 1,200 DPI, which we use pretty regularly as a large flatbed. I probably use it more than the Epson, but just based on what people need. Photos should be scanned at 300 DPI or larger resolution. We scan ours at 1,200. And then for VHS, we use a clear click video to digital converter with a VHS player. Just because it's so simple. You just plug it into your VHS player and then push play and push record. And when it's done, you push stop. And it automatically converts it to a digital file for you. It is so easy to use. Microfilm and feature scanned on our Scan Pro 2500 machine. This is something where it's kind of a pricey machine, but because we do so much microfilming, just it's not pricey in terms of microfilm machines, but so that our membership has access, we have this. But when it comes to microfilm and fiche, that's something where I would definitely look at your local library to see if they have a program like that one. Or if you just have a couple reels or something, you're welcome to reach out and maybe we can put something through for you. I haven't had that happen a lot, but I have had a few people call in with microfilm reels, and we can certainly scan it here for you too. So our library calls it the memory services that cover all of these formats. And then again, everything else that we need on an as needed basis is outsourced to a local company. And that's just because digitization is a time consuming process. It's a very high skill process. So that's like when it's something super special for us, like I had the 1958 ordination done. Chad did that for us at Summit Video. I knew that he would do a better job than I could working with such dated film. and he turned around just a wonderful product. So I'm super thankful for that. But sometimes you just know you need a well qualified professional to do that, and it requires things like freezing the film and other things that it's worth the price. So for file formats, so we use NARA's recommended formats. That's the National Archives. For photos, it's JPEG or TIFF. For audio, it's .wav. For video, .mkv or .avi. And for documents, it's PDF or PDF-A. PDF-A is PDF archival. It means that a document can't be modified after it's been created. If you do modify it, it loses the A, so it's PDF archival. But that is considered the standard format going forward currently. You'd want PDF-A, especially for legal documents and things like that. We said the same thing about microfilm and microfiche back in the day, that because they were unchangeable, they were okay for legal use, and that's where PDF-A comes in. It's okay for legal use because it hasn't been modified, or if it's modified, you can tell. So estate questions, in preparation for a new phase of life, whether it's downsizing due to death or closure of a congregation, or just if it happens out of the blue, or like Barbara Bernauer used to do death cleaning. She was very proud of cleaning up for her kids so they wouldn't have to, decide what to do with her things, which is such a thoughtful thing to do. Well, anyway, in this situation, we encourage you to reach out to us with your questions. Um, we welcome artifacts, documents, books, and we're going to be happy to guide you through the donation process. Things that help us expedite the process are detailed lists of items or pictures and provenance and history of items. Barb and I are both happy to put our heads together and talk on this. Locke often helps too. And we can definitely help you with your treasured items. So why do you want to reach out? Well, sometimes you just don't know what you have. One of our most treasured items was discovered in a basket of books at an auction for 50 cents. That is, the whole basket of books went for 50 cents. Now, what's interesting is that it's an Oliver Cowdery Doctor and Covenants. And Cowdery, is a fun fact, was a bookbinder, and he used this bright, splashy red Moroccan leather with a gold print on it. And I believe there are only about 8 known Cowdery bound books in existence. We have 3 of them. But obviously, this first one, it was his, and it's by far the best example of a Cowdery book. It is just in absolute mint condition. It is beautiful. It was kept in perfect conditions. The spine's not broken. The leather's still perfectly intact. It is just phenomenal. Now, the flip side of that is that we also have the Marcellus Cowdery Book of Mormon. This was lent to a congregation in the 1960s from the headquarters collection. Mark Shearer and one of our volunteers, Lee Updike, were called out to this congregation to help sell some items. And when they got out there, they recognized our vault tags. And they said, hey, these look like they were loaned to you from headquarters. And this is in, I believe, 2014. I could be a couple years off on the date. But they brought these materials back. And when they're looking at it in the back, they said, well, this is a great example of an 1837 Book of Mormon. And well, there's something on the cover, and the cover is brown. Remember, I said this is a bright, splashy red Moroccan leather, but it had been so used that it wasn't red anymore. It was brown with love. It had Lee was joking that there was a thumbprint inside on the front page, and he said it looks like some farmer was reading this in a field, and he just did that every day on his lunch hour, and it sure did. But it was just because it was stored and cared for in a different collection. Now, the binding is still great. The book is very much intact, but it's just weathered differently. So another good example is one of our earliest records, the 1853 to 1886 High Priest Quorum Record and Minute Book, was at a local estate sale auction. An LDS couple actually saw it. They realized how important it was, so they purchased it for us and drove it immediately here. Obviously, the person with the estate sale and the auction didn't know what they had, but it's very, very precious to us, and I'm so thankful for that couple that brought it in. So again, we can help guide you through the donation process. If items aren't a fit for our collection, we can often point you in the direction of places where they might be useful or appreciated. So resources, the LDS Church History Library. In 2016, we came to an agreement. They were kind enough to scan our Saints Herald up to 1994, because that's when the reels had been done by the Utah Genealogical Society. And this was prior to us having a microfilm scanner that could do that. And actually, it was a labor of love for them because they had to put in intensive work. But so they did all the heralds to 1994. They have the Zion's Ensign, which is another early missionary periodical, very similar to the Herald, but about 8 pages and focused on missionaries in the field. They have early membership records and deceased member files. So the early membership records were the old record books. It was kind of like a church census at the time, where we would call out every so often and say, hey, send in your congregational records. And they would record them in these massive books. And honestly, we haven't taken them out of the paper since they did the early membership records. But you'll often see EMR or early membership records books A, B, C, D. They go up through, I believe, M, but A, B, C, and D are the most popular. And so there you'll find baptism dates, birth dates, ordinations. Sometimes you'll see people got kicked out, which if you ever see that, don't be concerned, because we were a tougher church at the time, and I've read where we once kicked out someone for playing croquet on Sunday. So it didn't take a very serious offense. It was serious at the time, but now we would go, oh, that's okay. But of course, sometimes there were, and now a lot of the times you don't see why someone was removed or expelled, unless they did something really terrible. So one guy ran off with the stake money, and he was a stake president, and so they published that in the Herald for quite a while. But a lot of times you won't be able to figure out why somebody was removed or expelled. Um, and then the other thing the Church History Library has, they have our deceased member files, which are people that died in 1994 or earlier. You can find their records on there. And then, of course, they have the jurisdictional congregational histories that we talked about earlier. Now, I will say with the jurisdictional history, sometimes their scanners missed a page or two. So if you feel like you've gotten into a report and it's just really shy what it should have, feel free to reach out. And then you're always welcome to reach out regardless. But sometimes there are those little hiccups. Another great site is latterdaytruth.org. This was a former volunteer that used to come in, and he scanned heralds, pamphlets, audio. You can download heralds there. He was incredibly detail oriented, is incredibly detail oriented. He's just a fantastic person. His family contributed so much to this. But they are clean. They are really nice copies. And he doesn't have as many as the church history library has up, but you get really good quality there too. He also has audio and things of the sort, so that's worth checking out too. Obviously, Historic Sites Foundation, because you're going to find great lectures and things like that. And then local libraries like our Mid-Continent Public Library Genealogical Center, which of course has that memory lab that I've referred to a few times in this. And then Project Zion with their Faith Unfiltered podcast is excellent as well, for great resources for historical items. Honorable mention should be like the John Whitmer Historical Association. It's a historical association focused on Community of Christ history. And they also have partnered with Restoration Studies. So in the fall journal, you'll see Restoration Studies articles, which are theological tracks. So you'll see, like, I think Tony Shavella Smith just submitted one, and great things come up in there as well. So it's just a treasure trove of historical resources. And then if you're wondering, how can I help? Um, Obviously, sharing with Historic Sites Foundation and participating in the site's activities like this, and buying t-shirts and taking tours and just sharing your time, talents, and treasures with the Sites Foundation is excellent. The same for headquarters. So we're always looking for headquarters at headquarters, for volunteers at headquarters. We can match your skill set with a department that you can help. And know that our tours are provided largely by volunteers. Roger's seeking 15 more volunteers, and this is helping us to expand our days of the week that we're open. So right now we're technically only open 2 days a week, but Roger's got us up to 3. So if somebody walks up to the front door, they can come in and get help. He scheduled tours on other days of the week because he has wonderful volunteers that can pop in and help. Um, they're just absolutely invaluable. They also help in the museum as docents as well. Another way you can help is by tithing or by donating great items to help us share our story. And lastly, the best thing you can do is share your story in your congregations and with your community. So thank you for your time tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help with historical records retention, congregational historians with questions. If you're interested in becoming or appointing a historian, let me know. And I'm happy to help with any other questions as well. Um, Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Oh my gosh, we learned a lot tonight. Thank you for giving such a thorough presentation, from the tips of how to preserve a variety of historic materials to the details behind what it's like working in Independence at the temple, at headquarters, and how people can better engage the headquarters, from tours with Roger Rose to visiting you in the library archives. This has been incredibly informative. Thank you so much. Especially appreciate learning more about preserving congregational records, because that's needed throughout the church. I want to give you the last word for tonight, in case there was any final words of wisdom for the folks out there looking to preserve their heritage.
Uh, you know, Thank you for the opportunity to share this, and thank you to everyone who attended and is interested in preserving our history. I'm very serious. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always thrilled to work with you, and I'm so thankful for your work out where you are and where you visit in preserving our church history, your family history, our community history. It's all precious. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm afraid we're going to draw this evening to a close. So, again, thank you, Rachel, for sharing your knowledge with us tonight and for continuing that momentum that Megan started last week, talking about folklore and oral history. We are learning a lot this Heritage Day month, if you will, Community of Christ Heritage Month. Also, a big thank you to Peter and Wendy for helping out behind the scenes. It's great to have you two back for another online series, and for doing all that you do behind the scenes. You make it look so easy. So thank you so much. We also want to thank everyone joining us tonight from all around the world. Thank you for your continuing interest in preserving church heritage in your area. And thank you for your continuing interest in Community of Christ history. Thank you for loving a good story like the rest of us. We couldn't do these programs without you and your generosity. So also thank you for your generous support. We hope you'll join us next week as we welcome Karen Norton and Andrew Hughes to our series. Karen's presentation is called Preserving the Past Inside the British Isles Mission Center Archives. It's going to be a great program. Andrew will follow her with a presentation or a peek inside the work that he's doing at the El Cajon, California congregation. He has a growing collection of digitized congregational histories that are available online, and he's going to share about it, not only what that history is, but how he's preserving and digitizing those records, and how it's easy enough for you to do it as well. So please join us next week. Wendy has dropped the link in the chat where you can be among the first to register for the final program in our hands-on history series. Again, this is a new series. We weren't sure how this workshop approach was going to go, and we are thrilled to see well over 100 people registered for tonight's program. So thank you, friends, for being pioneers with us in this new workshop approach. We appreciate you joining us tonight for another evening of preserving church heritage, and we hope to see you next week. So then, until then, keep reading your church history and doing what you do in supporting us and preserving the past. Have a good night, friends.